Alrighty, hello, welcome to Basic Mixing Techniques Part 1, aka drums. I just want to clarify, we're just going to be mainly working with EQing and compressing the drums. Just these two tools alone can completely transform your drum tone. They're very powerful. Also, if you were to copy some of my settings, you wouldn't be achieving the same sound I achieve because I mix specifically to my drum kit. So I'm going to teach you how to EQ and compress to your drum kit, but that won't be exactly the settings that I have for mine. So without any further ado, let's hop into the session. I recorded this track, One Thing Remains by Bethel Music, awesome song. Recorded a clip of it a few days ago, so let's take a listen to that. So that sounded pretty cool to me. I'm really happy with how this turned out. Let's take a look at these drum tracks. So I have a kick, snare, snare bottom, tom 1, tom 2, and then a pair of stereo overheads, and then also a MIDI tambourine for some doubling snare hits. All right, let's take a look at the drums soloed. Cool. So let's look at the kick specifically. I love using this Waves SSL channel strip for EQing on the left side and compression on the right. One of the reasons I love this plugin is because you're not able to actually see the frequencies, left to right like a regular channel EQ. So you really have to use your ear with this on what you're changing. So that's why I like to use this one. So let's take a look at the kick. Let's take a look without. Huge difference, right? So, there are a few moves I'm doing with the EQ here. I'm keeping the top end the same, the treble. Here, around 4,000 hertz, I'm taking out about 3 dB. So that gets rid of this kind of boxy, clicky sound, which I can show you here. So this is the frequency right here. That was a little bit too overpowering for me, so I took it out a little bit by 3 dB. As far as the kick drum, there's always some low-mid frequencies that are pretty troubling. So let's take a look at what I did down here. So that's the really ugly frequencies that I wanted to get rid of. So what I like to do is bump the gain, right? Turn it up all the way, and then search. I search for these frequencies that I don't like. Right around here, it gets really muddy for me, so I'm going to take out about 3 dB of that. Really clear, right? So I was a little unhappy with the low end that came with this sample. So I wasn't afraid to just bump like 9 dB of bass into this thing, Listen to how full that is compared to this. Huge difference, right? So that's what I'm doing with EQ on the kick, right? As far as compression, which, by the way, is reducing the dynamic range. As far as kick and snare, I like to get rid of around 6 dB of gain reduction. This makes it sound more energetic. So let's take a listen with and without that. So this is the knob you use to adjust how much gain reduction you got. This is none. That's starting to sound real nice. Okay, so let's take a look at the kick with and without these adjustments. Huge, right? Now let's take a look at the snare. Let's take away the EQ and compression. Pretty cool. We can do a lot with this though. So, as far as EQ, we're using this same plugin here. We start with using a low pass filter, which gets rid of a lot of the low frequencies that the snare doesn't even use. So we're getting rid of about 87 hertz. And then as far as the high end, it was a little dark for me. Let's take a look. Just add a little bit of air up here. Just add a little bit of snare, real nice. Here in the upper mids, I wanted to get rid of this disgusting snare-y frequency. Just a little bit, not too drastic. So now if we look at the low mid frequencies, I'm going pretty high on this one. I'm kind of doing pretty much the same thing as I did with the high mid frequencies. There are just some really ugly frequencies that I wanted to even out here. That gets nice and clear. I want to really bring home the fact that subtractive EQ can be a lot more effective than additive EQ. So you can see all these cuts I'm doing. I'm also doing boosts, but these kind of cancel out each other, so you're not adding a lot of gain to the signal. I could have used a little bit more low end on this snare. Let's take a look without this. It's good for sure. That's the frequency I want to add right there. Let's search. Right there. Boom. That's awesome. So then with snare, I also like to do around 6 dB of gain reduction. Let's take a look at that with and without. Without. You can hear that compression really just gives it a lot more of an edge and a lot more sustain. So let's see with and without the channel strip I just added. Start without. Wow. That's huge. So as you can see, with just these little adjustments with EQ and compression, you can totally transform these drums. As far as the snare bottom mic, it's really there to just bring back some of those ghost notes that the trigger of the snare took out. So this is what that sounds like. Pretty cool. Add it with the snare. Without. So you can just see it's just adding a little bit of clarity there. As far as the toms, let's take a look at the first tom. Let's find a nice tom hit here. Cool. So once again, we got our channel strip here. Literally, I'm just adding a little bit of low end, a little bit of low mids, and some clarity at the top. Let's see with and without. Okay, you can totally hear how much low end that I really brought in here. Let's take a look. Pretty cool. As far as compression, let's take a look at what I did here. Once again, about 6 dB of gain reduction. This is really simple stuff. I'm really just keeping it pretty static as far as compression throughout the drums. And really, you just want to search for these troubling frequencies, eliminate them, and then boost the frequencies you like. You also want to keep in mind what the drums sound like in context of each other. So it's always a good idea to do these EQs with the whole drum kit in. Right, so that's sounding great. Let's take a look at the EQ for the overheads. We have our SSL here. With the overheads, I like to get rid of a lot of the low end. I'm rolling off about 350 hertz. That gets rid of a lot of the low end for me. And then as far as other EQs that are pretty typical of overheads, is getting rid of that really piercing, tinny sound that a crash cymbal has under a microphone. That's this 9 dB of gain reduction here. Let's take a look at this with that frequency in. Pretty ugly, right? So let's dial that back. That takes a lot of the harshness out of it. I also like to take out some low mids here. That gives a little bit more clarity as well. See how ugly those frequencies are? Nice. Another thing to keep in mind is that I do not like to compress the overheads. That's right, I'm already compressing all the other drums, and I don't want to take too much life out of these drums, you know? So I want to give the overheads a lot of room to breathe, so I do not compress the overheads. So that's pretty much it as far as EQing and compressing drums. You can hear what a drastic difference it makes. So we're going to do a little comparison. We're going to bring in and out these EQs and compressors we just put on. Take a look at how we really transformed those drum sounds and brought them to life. So let's take a look at the bridge of the song here. Let's take them out and then I'll put them back in. That's huge. So that's pretty much it as far as EQing and compressing drums in my mixes. It's really basic stuff. You just want to use your ear and hear what frequencies do I like, which frequencies don't I like, and then give your kick, snare, and toms just some basic around 5-6 dB of gain reduction, and you're definitely going to have an improved drum sound. So I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you in part 2, mixing bass. See you there.